Progressive Business Executive Education would like to welcome you to today's program, Google Analytics Training, 10 Ways to Reach Your Marketing Goals. My name is Jim, and I will be your moderator for today's program. Today's event is 90 minutes in length. There will be a 75-minute presentation, followed by a 15-minute question and answer session. The entire program is being recorded and can be purchased at an attendee discount. If you have any questions during the event, you can communicate with me through the chat box on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. We ask that if you lose stream or have audio issues throughout this event, that you please select the red X in the upper right-hand corner to refresh the interface. Please remember that it is a violation of our copyright to record this training. Now I would like to introduce to our speaker, Tina Arnoldi.
Okay, Jim, thank you very much. This is Tina Arnoldi. I'm your presenter today as we talk about analytics. You'll see some of my information up here on the screen. My business, I do a combination of consulting and training, and I do it in the Google product line. What I will point out, there's all different places where you can find me online here in social media. I will point out my YouTube channel is not one of those fun channels, right? So you come to YouTube, I have video clips or webinars on Google Analytics. So I always tell people my channel is the good one if you need a little help falling asleep at night. So it's that real technical stuff, no cat videos or anything. Okay, and so hopefully everybody can see my screen. So I'm still on this intro screen that just says reach your marketing goals with Google Analytics. And we'll go ahead and jump right in. The first thing I need to point out is what we're not doing today. So the reason I'm saying that is because there were slides sent out to you last week in error that were 100% my fault. So this is actually for a different talk that gets a lot more into the features of analytics. So if you're referencing the slides that have this listed in them as the agenda, just again, apologies, that was my mistake. So I will tell you what we're actually talking about. You can maybe hold on to these for another time. So who this class is for. Now, everyone knows that anybody who does any kind of work in marketing or your new business or anything like that, you know that your audience is never everyone, right? So in this case, I'm going against the grain of what we all know to be true, and I'm going to tell you that this class is for everyone. And let me tell you how I present this one. I've got, different topics that are very geared towards beginners, other towards advanced. This one I really do think is a good one that everyone can get a little bit of information from. So Google Analytics beginners. So if there's some of you have never used this before, that's okay. I'm going to make sure that I explain any terminology I use very carefully, give you a lot of opportunity to ask questions. If you're an intermediate user, what I'm hoping is that you'll find some features in there that maybe you haven't been using because you're in your default mode. You always go into analytics for a couple specific things, and you may have been missing some things in there. And then I say too, for business leaders, so if you don't have a marketing role, maybe you're the company owner or you're in sales or customer service or any other kind of role, is this can just help you see kind of how your business is doing online, how your marketing efforts are doing and how your site's performing, meaning people are spending time on your site or they're not spending time on your site if there's any kinds of problems. Okay, so these are some of the goals that I have that I'm hoping we'll accomplish in the time we have together. So again, looking about the features that are in there in analytics that you can use in your marketing. Also going to look at things that maybe you're already using in your account, and if there's some things that you want to introduce as you measure your marketing efforts. Of course, I have some things in here that I list as homework items, and what I have in these slides is that it'll give you a checklist of some things to do with your account, just kind of checking the health of your account, maybe some things that you can apply, so hopefully you'll be able to have some real takeaways. So the first thing I always like to do is I like to get a feel for the audience. So what I'll ask you to do shortly, when I ask you to rate your analytics knowledge, number one is that you've never logged in. And I get that a fair amount for people who just suddenly had the Google Analytics role added to their job, even though they've never used it before. So that's not uncommon at all. The second option I'll want to know is if you're just kind of getting started. You're just getting there. You kind of find your way around a little bit, but there's still some to learn. The next one, of course, is enough to be dangerous, or as I say, to break things. And I'll mention things in here that you can break in analytics. And then of course I say the analytics ninja, the people who are really have really mastered it and have a good handle on analytics. So what I'd like you to do in your chat box, if you would take a minute and just type 1, 2, 3, or 4. So if you go ahead and do that now, I'm going to watch those answers come in, so it gives me a feel for where the audience is. And you're not seeing this on your screen right now, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the feedback. So I'm seeing a lot of got some ones, twos, threes. Okay, so there does seem to be quite a range. A couple more people coming in saying they're at about a 2. Okay, this is good. This is helpful for me to know because again, I always try to gear my presentation to who is on the call. Okay, perfect. So let me go ahead and we'll go to the next screen. This I'm going to talk a little bit about, it sounds very simple, is measuring what matters. So I'm going to highlight, just I want to talk through some of these metrics, especially since some of you are newer to analytics. And this is a totally different presentation of all of the different metrics that are available. We go into more detail on that in a more introductory class. But I want to at least highlight some of the key features and tell you what some of these terms mean so you know what you're reporting on. Sounds very simple, but if you're not sure how Google defines a term, it can be hard for you to know what you're reporting. So a key thing to know, I'm going to point out sessions and visitors. So if I go to your website and I spend 30 minutes on your site and then I go about my day and I go to bed and that's it, I was just on there for that 30 minutes in the morning, that's one session and I'm one visitor. Okay, so now we'll say I go to your website in the morning. I'm on there for a half hour or so. So we'll say 10 to 10:30. I'm on your computer. I'm on your website, and then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon that same day, I hop on your website again and look around a little bit. I'm still one visitor or one user, but now that's two sessions. So those things are different. Those are important to know because if depending on your business type, you may want to constantly attract new people because they're going to buy something on your site. Or with sessions, if you're content heavy, you're like the Huffington Post or CNN or something like that, that's a content heavy site, you'd probably love to see me on your site 5 times a day, so you would have that one user with multiple sessions. I want to comment on bounce rate because this is a common question even for people who've been using analytics for a while. So I just want to highlight that definition. So the bounce rate is when someone comes to your site, so they visit a page of your site and then they leave. So maybe they click back to their Google search screen, or maybe they close the browser, or maybe they go somewhere else. So it's what it can mean is that a high bounce rate may indicate, and I say may, that your pages are not relevant to what someone is looking for. Now, there's different cases where I would say, you think about your business model, because if someone comes to your site and they leave right away, but the page they're coming to is what I would say brochureware, they're coming to your page just to get your hours and your phone number, well, then that's okay if they leave right away if they're contacting you. So again, it really is very dependent on the type of site that you have. And page views, I want to point out page views too. So if I come to your website and I come to your about page, and then I go to your career page, and then I go back to your about page, and then I go back to your career page. So what that means is I uniquely viewed your about page twice, right? Because I'm sorry, I uniquely viewed your page once because I was on that about screen, but then I can have multiple views. So I can view the same page 5 times, 10 times. And then of course, recency would just be how often people come into your site. So those are just some key metrics I want to point out before we go any further. So this is I kind of say one of the first things with your homework assignment is to think about what you're measuring. And it sounds so simple, but what happens is because Google Analytics is such a fire hose of data that people will get, they'll get in there and they'll start measuring everything, and trying to look at numbers for every single thing. And that's not always helpful if it's not something that doesn't necessarily matter for your business. So really think about that. If you say that you have somebody you give reporting data to every week, and you're starting to look at it and saying, why are we giving these numbers? So if you're not using the numbers, it's possible that it's something that you don't necessarily need to collect. So that's kind of like your first homework. What are you measuring? What do we need to know about our site? So my next question is just another one so I can get a little bit of information, and I'm curious what kind of site that you have. So, and this is the way that I define it. E-commerce, of course, is somebody buys something. You know, I go to Amazon, I spend 20 bucks on a book, 20 bucks on a book, and I bought something. The lead generation, that could be if you are in a service business, you know, you want somebody who's inquiring about your services. The informational, or I say brochureware, that's how those sites are referred to. It's not necessarily a criticism if the site is serving its purpose. So we want people to come and we want them to get our phone number. So maybe like a hair salon, you know, you get the phone number and you drive to the salon. Content driven I would think of those, the sites that I mentioned, like Huffington Post. Five, I always have to throw this in because sometimes people just will say, our website is horrible. We need to do something different. And then six is, you know, if you're just not sure how to classify it, that's okay. So why don't you take just a minute and give me that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm going to just watch responses come in and then we'll keep moving. Okay, this is interesting. Yep, I see someone coming in and the response was 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's good. Yeah, definitely will be sites that can have more than that. Got ones, twos. Okay, so we've got quite a mix today of the different kinds of sites, and that's good. That's helpful to know because when I talk about goals, you know, I like knowing what people are working on, what type of site they have. Okay, so when I talk about, you know, the type of site you have, your goals obviously are going to be different depending on what you hope to do by having your website up. So an obvious one for an e-commerce, I see a couple of people have that, is that you are selling something, right? So you want to know what kind of order value, you know, is coming through. So is somebody buying a $20 item, a $300 item? Do they do multiple items in a purchase? You may also want to know how, you know, your new people that are buying something versus your returning people. You also want to know how many people are abandoning a cart. So if, and give a good example of this because I know this is a site, not giving the name, but a site that I know I've abandoned before, is that I'll find something online and, you know, it'll be $20 and I'll go ahead through the checkout process, add my credit card, and then all of a sudden I see that the shipping cost would also be about $20. You know, so that's when I abandon. So as you see abandonment, for those of you who are doing e-commerce sites, you can watch where they're leaving. You know, so maybe you need to display your shipping cost up front. You know, so there's a lot of different things that you can measure. With content, of course, time on site. The other thing I didn't say, it's not on your screen here, but page views, right? So are they viewing multiple pages, or will, you know, are they just looking at just one and leaving? Are people leaving comments? You know, so that's a number of different things with content. And then with lead generation, and this is really, really important for you to know regarding goals. If I come to your website and I'm on the Contact Us form, getting to that, or excuse me, the Contact Us page that has a form, if I get to Contact Us, a lot of people measure that as a goal, but that's not really the ideal goal because that's just a page view. What you want to measure is when I'm on that page and I complete the form and then I click submit, that's your goal, that people clicked the submit button and completed the form. But what can be helpful to look at is if you look at how many people got to the Contact Us page compared to how many people who complete the form. So if 100 people are on your page and only 4 of them actually go through and complete the form, just kind of a tip here that a common problem is if you're requiring too much information on the form. So as business owners, we of course all want to get as much information as possible for people interested in working with us. But each field that you add to the form, you know, name, phone, address, zip code, etc., each field that you add decreases the likelihood of somebody actually finishing the form. Okay, so that's just something I would just want to note kind of on a side note there as you think about the forms on your website. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is the account structure. And I will say too, at the end, we do some Q&A, and anything that I didn't delve into enough for you, then we'll of course come back and try to do what we can within the 90 minutes we have together. So this screen is just Google account users. So you'll see, so this will be, I'll give the example using myself, kind of over there on the top left where it says liz@gmail.com. So I'll log into analytics and I'll see an account for sites that I own. And then I'll also see something over here to the right where it says Liz's team account. So I'll have accounts for other businesses that I work with. The reason you want to pay attention to your structure is that you want to, the way I recommend is that each account is for one website, right? So every site, which would be like every company, has its own account. The reason that's important is that let's look at the example of we'll stay here in we'll stay over here this left one with Liz. So let's say that as a business owner, I have a Google Analytics account, and I'm using under the account is I'm listing the web properties or the different websites I manage as part of my job, right? So I own the account, and then we'll say I own all of these different websites under my account. The reason that's a problem is that if one of those accounts, or I'm sorry, let me get my terminology right, one of those properties for this website company decides, I get fired and they don't want to work with me anymore, the problem is that their data is then under my account. So they're not going to be able to get access to their data without being part of my account. So the short way, and I may need to do some Q&A on this later, and of course that's fine, that I want you to really think about doing, especially if you're getting started and you haven't maybe done much with it yet, is you want to look at you want to make sure that somebody in your company is an administrator on the account, right? So the highest level, which is you have back up here, you have account, and then you've got properties, and then you've got views. You've got this hierarchy. The highest level of accounts, you want to make sure that someone in your company owns the account for your data. Now, if you are in a situation where you're working with an agency and they have the account, so they have an account and all of the websites they manage are under that, you may want to set up you may want to have a second account so you can always own the data. So I know that's a little confusing, and the key takeaway here is just to check the user rights in your account and make sure that you are removing people that do not work with you, or that you're choosing not to work with, and we can take a look at the admin area too when I get into the accounts. We'll be looking at different web analytics, or excuse me, Google Analytics accounts today. Just try not to flip back and forth too much, but I can show you where you can find that. And that's key too. If somebody no longer works with you, especially if they leave and they go to a competitor, you want to make sure and keep that kind of cleaned up so you don't have anybody who is, who leaves and still has access to your data. The next thing I want to comment on is the intelligence alerts. And this is something I said at the beginning. This is the presentation that we're not doing today. What I do in that one is I get into custom reports and intelligence alerts a little more in depth, but I want to at least introduce you to it. With the intelligence alerts, and actually let me back up. Does anyone monitor their intelligence alerts in analytics? You can just say yes or no in the chat box, and I just want to see if anyone is doing that. So you're just monitoring intelligence alerts, just so I know who's familiar with it. Okay, I see that everybody who's responded so far that I see have said no. So that's good. So again, we'll get into that, show that to you at the end as well. So an intelligence alert is Google's way of notifying you what it thinks is important. So if your traffic, you have 1,000 people a week, and then you've got a week where only 50 people are on, Google's going to say, whatever algorithms it uses is going to say, oh, we had 1,000 people and then they went to 50. I want to get their attention because that's obviously a problem to drop that much traffic. So it's kind of a way, I like to say, of letting Google do the work for you. Okay. And you can also do some custom alerts, but let's take a look first. Let me just show you some of the types of alerts you would have. And again, I can show this to you in a real screen too. But I'll at least have you, so you at least have the screenshot so we can look at it. So for this account I just pulled out, this is, you have automatic and custom. So custom, we'll do that another time, another class we talk about different custom alerts, but the automatic alerts can be very helpful, especially for those of you who are newcomers, is that when you come in here and you look at your intelligence events, that you can see, again, what Google thinks is important. So let's look, let me try to pick one that I think might be interesting. Well, actually, let me go to the next screen so you can see all the way to the right. That'll give you more data. So this is more helpful. So what this is saying, this is what Google has determined for this screenshot, that they find that the activity on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis for these things that I have listed here, I had to trim down the screenshot. But if we look at the first line, so Google's looking at sessions, meaning how many periods of interaction with the site, and then the exit page. And on a daily basis, it shows that there's been a big increase, 148% of activity on that career page. Let me look at another one that I think is a little more interesting. Okay, so number 7. Number 7 is new sessions. So these are people, coming to the site, maybe for the first time, and they're coming from Indeed, right? So Indeed.com is a job search site. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that is the line that shows March 8 minus 49%. What Google is saying that, Indeed used to send a lot of traffic to you, but what we're seeing is that on a daily basis, it's gone down by 40, it's a negative 49, meaning it's decreased by that amount. So again, and as you would probably assume, that green is good and red is bad. So green is just telling you, hey, these things are doing really well on your site, and then we have these other things that aren't doing so well. So this is a nice feature, especially for new people to use those built-in, look at those built-in alerts, because what you would do when and we'll see this in my account, is when you're looking at this, when you log into analytics, it's going to be over on the left side, and you just look at the intelligence event, automatic alerts, and see if there's anything that's good to know for your business. So for example, if you find that people were completing a goal, and a goal is a desired action on your site, people are completing your goal, and then suddenly for the last few days that number's gone way down, so you know that that's something that you might need to investigate. And then with the custom alerts is if there's something that you want to monitor that Google doesn't monitor automatically, that's where those custom alerts come in. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is talk about real time. Now this isn't going to necessarily apply to everyone if you don't have a high volume site. I want to just at least show you what that screenshot looks like, and I'll give you these cases of why you would use it. So this is a screenshot of real time. So what you might be looking at here, this is just the account I pulled this from, just had a few. But the reasons that you might want to use it is if you just did a big push on social media. You've got 1 billion followers or thousands of fans, and you did a push on social media, and you want to see if people are coming to your site right away, right? So after you send out that post, you might, out of curiosity, want to come in here, see what kind of activity you're getting. Of course, if you have any special promotion, whether it's with social media or otherwise, or maybe even with your email newsletter. If you happen to have a very popular email newsletter, it goes out 10 o'clock on Tuesday, then you might want to come here out of curiosity Tuesday morning, see if it's getting people to the site directly. So now those are marketing related things, but another case this is very helpful is if you think analytics is broken on your site. You have maybe a website was updated, or you're even installing analytics for the first time. I often use this as a test, so I'll assume analytics is installed on here, I'll test it out, and then I'll see if somebody is actively on the site. So that would be another case for using real time. So again, although real time is not as helpful for people who do not have high volume sites, I would definitely keep it in mind if you have to ever want to do any testing. Okay, the next feature that I want to talk about is demographics and interests. And this is a way for you to analyze the visitors to your site by age, gender, and interest. And I'll show you what that looks like and talk about the catch. So I'll go ahead and throw out another question there. Are you familiar with the demographics and interest reports in Google Analytics? So just a yes or no. Give that a minute to come in so I can see what people are using. Okay, so we've got about half and half, some yes, some no. So let me show you what this, again, I'll show you some screenshots here and we'll get into the accounts, after I get through the slides, give you this main information. If you do not have it enabled in your account, this is something you have to actually go ahead and say, yes, I want to enable that. So it'll give you reports, and the goal is to help you learn more about your users. Now, let me just tell you what these categories are a minute, the different categories that it'll talk about. And we'll start here. Okay, so once you enable it, you're obviously age and gender. I don't have to explain what that is. That's how Google is identifying people as being male or female or age that goes by categories. This can be interesting. So this is an affinity category, a screenshot I pulled from an account. And what this tries to do is identify users in terms of their lifestyle. So if they're a tech person or sports fan or cooking, and what they're supposed to be doing is be designed to be similar to how television audiences are categorized. Now, the reason this one is somewhat interesting is I pulled this screenshot from a client who does skincare. So this first one, the reach the beauty mavens, that makes sense for people who are interested in skincare. They're interested in beauty items. The reason that might be helpful is if I were to do any advertising, I might want to pull this in AdWords as one of my categories of people that I want to advertise to. So that's where I think that can be helpful. There's another category. Okay, I don't see, it's not on this screenshot, but again, we'll pull it in. You'll see, so we have the affinity, and again, this is kind of lifestyle. The other one that might be interesting for those of you who are doing paid campaigns is there an audience that's called in-market segment. And what in-market segment means is that it's identifying users in terms of what seems to be their purchased interest, your product or purchase interest. So their browsing habits indicate that they're about to make a purchase in some area. So that's kind of in market. That can be interesting to play around with. And then we'll show you another one called the other category. And even though other category sounds exceptionally broad, it can give really a more specific focused view. So, so for example, the affinity category might say foodies. I don't know if I see that on this one here. We see cooking enthusiasts, but so an affinity might say foodies, and then the other might say um, recipes from East Asia, like getting really, really specific. So that's where that comes from. And that's affiliated with DoubleClick, which is an advertising service that kind of collects that data for Google. So this can be interesting to use. Be careful though, because you could have a household where, let's say, and I know everyone has at least one device of their own now, but just bear with me. So we're going to say we have a household, we've got mom, dad, two kids, and let's say there was only one computer, or one computer that most of them used in the living room. Well, then you've got four different browsing habits on there, and it's kind of hard to know, what people are interested in. But again, you can always test some small campaigns, and I'm not going to get into AdWords. I'll just say the good thing about AdWords is that you can always turn it on and off. So if it's not working for you, and you're not getting the right kind of audience, then of course you would turn that off. So what I suggest doing is, if this feature is not already enabled, is to just go ahead and enable it. And, again, we'll get into that. That's just kind of like flipping a switch. So just go ahead and enable it and just look at the data and see if there is anything in there that you think you might be able to use. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to go to is goals. And again, I'm going to just kind of keep working through the slides today and then come back and get into the accounts. And I definitely will save time that we are actually in there. So the goals, again, this is why you have a site, right? So you are, again, the things we talked about, your e-commerce, your lead generation, whatever it is, it's the reason you have your site. And you, of course, want to measure what matters, right? So you want to just measure what is important to one site isn't going to be important to the other. So that's just something to think about. And this will be helpful for me to know, when we get into goals, and maybe we can look at some for different sites here. But just if I could get a 1, 2, or 3, again, seeing if you're familiar with goals and using them on your Google Analytics account. And if you're not sure, you can say not sure, and that's just fine too. Okay, so we see got some ones and twos, fair number of no's. Okay, I see somebody making decisions based on them. Okay, that's great. That's helpful for me to know, and we'll talk about these goal types. So again, I'm just showing you the screenshot. And what this does, and actually, I'm going to go ahead and I will take this over to analytics because I think that'll be more helpful. So bear with me, let me open one of my accounts. Okay. So everyone should hopefully, you still see, okay, you can see that I have one of my Google Analytics accounts up there. And let me come on over into the admin area. And actually the first thing I'll do, let me show you the user access. I just want to make sure I don't forget that at the end with the account structure, and then we'll go ahead and do a goal. So I'm in the admin area of an account. Now, if you do not have a lot of rights on your account, you're going to see a lot of these options are going to be grayed out, that you wouldn't even be able to set a goal or do anything like that. But if you can see all of these options, it does mean that you have high level access. And that's where you come in here, your user management, and you decide, which people maybe you want to have removed from your account. You can do that there. Okay, so the goals. So the goals for the site, let me show you a couple that are set up for this group. This happens to be a website for a little local nonprofit organization. And these are really pretty simple goals. And for the most part, you have an organization. And these are really pretty simple goals. And for the most part, you have 4 goal types. And I'll show you what those types are. So go to new goal, and I'll say custom. I choose custom because the template, it tries to give you, also go ahead and say contain. Oh, they have changed that. See, so this happens to me all the time when I teach something and something was different than it used to be. So, so we can say, I guess, custom or template. It's going to show me the same thing. Okay, what it used to be was what was on my screenshot. We can go back to that, but that's okay. So we'll go ahead and you name your goal. And we have the 4 types here, and I'll show you the goals that are set up for this organization. So the first one, the destination goal, that's the one where I was saying it's most helpful if it's for people who have completed a form. So I'll just pretend I'm going to set one up here, and I'll say contact. So now what I see people happen is they'll say, contact us. So they say that's the goal page. Now again, this is the goal that is actually, or this is actually the page where the goal would happen. So a better URL would be, assuming your URL changes once people completed, would be, contact us completed, or whatever the name of that page is. That way you know that people actually completed your form, and that's what's most valuable to you, is that it was done. So think of a destination goal of something that happens after the fact. So I'll cancel out on that, and then it will show a duration goal. This is for the contact or content site people that you want people to spend time on your site. So you might say, I'll say site duration. Excuse me a minute. It's allergy season here in Charleston. So, okay, so I say site duration. Now, and this is what I see a lot of goals named. See what I have here right now? It's just site duration. The problem is that when you look at this in your reports later, you're going to see site duration, and you're going to say, site duration of what? I don't remember what we said for that one. So I'm going to say a site duration, I'm just going to call that greater than 60. I could say 60 seconds. Because then, now when I go ahead and I say continue, well, or I could have said 1 minute, but I'll just keep it here 60. So now what'll happen is that this goal will happen whenever somebody is on the site for 60 seconds or more. And when you're looking at your reports later, you're going to know what this is doing because it's saying specifically they're on the site for more than 60. You can also do this type of goal thinking about whatever you consider negative for your account, right? So let's say on your site, you find that a lot of people are probably spending about 5 minutes because there's a lot of content. And I know, and yes, 5 minutes is a very long time in the internet age, but you want to track if somebody is on the site for less than 5 minutes, and you can see it's named well, and I do continue. I'm saying, oh, it's not going to let me do that greater than. Okay, apologize for that. There used to be a greater than and less than, so I used to do it differently. So I apologize for giving you bad information there. So let me come back to this other one where we are on greater than. You can have multiple greater than goals. So we want to know, I want to know if somebody's on the site for more than a minute, and then I also just kind of want to look at the audience that's on there for more than 5 minutes. So of course the 5 minute is going to encompass the 1 minute, but you may want to measure both of those things, right? So I can have a goal that's looking at the more than 5 minutes and the more than 1 minute. So that would be a destination goal. The other one, the pages per screen. Again, this is if you have content, you want people to be spending some time on your site, looking around at what's available there. But do the same thing here and name it, name it well. So pages per screen, I'm going to just arbitrarily say, I want to know if people are spending or on more than 3 pages. So I continue. Let's see if this one, yep, that one's still greater than only. So greater than 3, and then that's what would be tracked there. So now I cancel out of these since this account does have some goals in here. And so right now they have a goal for their e-news page, the time on site, and the pages per session. And this shows how many times in the last week each of these things happened. So those are where you set up the goals. Now let me come back over to here. And see, this is what the screen used to look like. It had the template, but now the template and custom are the same thing. So I'm not quite sure why they have both, but that's okay. So I showed you the demo. And then again, kind of your homework. This is a pretty big takeaway is you want to, poke around your account, see if goals are set up. If they're not, you definitely want to make that a priority because again, this is where it's about, how well is your website doing, so figure out what would be a goal for your business. And then when I say here on this third point, I said make sure the goals aren't measuring things that are found in other reports. That would be something like getting to the Contact Us page, right? So if that's just a regular page, then it doesn't really matter as much, as a goal that people get there because you can just see that in the data that's already built in analytics. Okay, the other thing, then let me move on to another step, and this one is site search. Now, the site search feature, I'll show you where that is in analytics, is when somebody comes to your website and then they look for something in your search box. So this is really, really helpful if you do have the option to set this up on your account, is that you're not just seeing, it's not how people got to your site, but it's what people are doing when they get there. So that can be some really valuable keyword data. So you can see too the user, I'd say usability. So if one of the things you sell are, I'm going to say, I'll just say sneakers, right? You sell sneakers on your site and you think, okay, that's our big thing. It's pretty obvious where to find that in the menu. So we probably have a lot of people there. And then you look in your site search terms and you find that a lot of people are searching for sneakers. Well, that indicates that maybe your site isn't as obvious as what you're doing. So if people are searching for things that's on a main menu, that's good to know. Another way that I will use this in client accounts is if it'll help me get an idea for blog posts. So somebody is searching, maybe they're on your site and they do search something silly like celebrity sneakers, right? And that's your market, you're a sneaker person. Then maybe for fun you would have a post talking about what celebrities are wearing, that kind of thing to get attention. Also, the other thing that it's helpful for is if, again, you see a common search term and you thought it was obvious how to find this information on your site, and there's a term that's repeatedly searched, it might mean that that needs to be a separate page on your site and not just not just part of another page. It might need to have its own page. So if you're curious about site search, this is how you can find it. So in your analytics account, when you look at your behavior and you look at site search, and of course you have this to reference later, then this will kind of point you through how to do this. So this is if you do have the ability to search something on your site. Okay, the next thing I want to show you and talk to you about is Webmaster Tools. And if I could just get another yes, no real quick. I'd love to know if anybody uses it, or somebody in your organization uses it, or no, does not use it. So if you want to just put that in the chat box real quick, I'll just watch that for a second. Okay. I love this response. This is a thing. So that's great. Yeah. So, yep. So the consensus is nope, we don't know what it is. Okay. So that's good. So then I won't bore you by going into it. Well, maybe I will bore you, but at least it'll be new information to bore you with. So I'm back over here into analytics, and I'm going to stay in this account. Come over here to reporting, and this is in the acquisition section. Oh, and I'll just point out here, I'm being all over the place. I know. Here's your intelligence alerts up here. Okay, so my acquisition, I'm going to look under search engine optimization, and then I'm going to look at queries. Okay, so let me explain what this is, and then we'll talk about that connection with why you care, or what this has to do with Webmaster Tools. Okay, this data comes from Webmaster Tools. So one of the most annoying things with Google Analytics, and I can always say that it's things I find annoying because I partner with them, but I don't work for them, is that you used to be able to get really good keyword data in analytics, and that seems to be hidden now. They don't display that information anymore. So what we're looking at here is these are people who were on google.com, and then they did a search on google.com. So this is a good example. So this is the name of the organization, Charleston Promise Neighborhood. So on Google, somebody typed Charleston Promise Neighborhood. For this time period, this website, this nonprofit's website, showed up in the search results 1,246 times. Of those 1,246 times, a link to this website was clicked on 100 times, right? So it's coming up in search, but not a lot of people are clicking on it. And then the average position is that it's usually in the top position. So if you're on google.com and you see a bunch of results, you're seeing the top 10. So this has a good position. Okay, so why do you care? The reason you would care is because, of course, you want to know if your site is coming up when people search words relevant to your business. You can also perhaps find things that maybe you want to talk about or you want to highlight, like here. So somebody was searching for neighborhood groups that have enrichment activities. And this group's website came up, but it wasn't clicked on. So if this is a big part of their nonprofit organization, they're going to want to have some more content on their site about this. So for Webmaster Tools is if you are come into your account sometime, look at acquisition, SEO, and queries. If you see this data, it means that your analytics account and AdWords account are connected to each other. If you don't see this information, you'll see an option there to enable. It'll say something, I'm trying to think what exactly it says, but basically you won't see data. You'll see some kind of prompt. So if you don't have enough rights to enable that, you'll want to talk to whoever the person is that manages your site and get them to help you with it, because this is one of these things, there's lots of things in analytics you can break. This is not one of those things you can break, so this is definitely a good idea to connect those two. So now I still use the term Webmaster Tools. Google now calls it Search Console because I guess they like to change things once in a while, but if you just look at Webmaster Tools or Search Console, you'll be able to find it. Again, it's a Google product and it's free. So that's Webmaster Tools, and that that in terms of your kind of a marketing strategy is getting that keyword data about your business. So again, this is just your reminder, so you'll know how to, find that later on. And again, that you'll get a prompt to connect it, or you can perhaps have someone help you with it. Okay, the next one, just another quick question. I'll keep moving along. So just a 1, 2, 3, 4, curious about AdWords. I'm not going to get into AdWords. I just have one thing I wanted to comment on. So that's just seeing who is using it and your take on it. So if you want to just do a 1, 2, 3, or 4 for just a minute. Okay, so we're across the board with this too. So yeah, sometimes it can be good. Other times it's a waste of money. And as I always say, this is where again I can have my party line where I don't work for Google. That even though this is a service I provide, a lot of times I'll look at accounts with clients and say we need to just turn this off because it's just a money pit. However, if you're using it or you plan to use it, this is the reason I'm talking about this one in analytics talk, is that under in your analytics account for campaigns, if your if your AdWords and analytics accounts are connected, you're passing data back and forth. If you see this screenshot, it just means that you are not yet connecting these accounts. So let me just show you what that looks like a minute. So I'm back in this nonprofit account, and I'm talking briefly here about acquisition. So acquisition is how you acquire your customers. Now with AdWords, and again, we won't be getting into all of these things today, but what we can see now, I'm logged into this organization's analytics account. I'm over here clicking on acquisition, AdWords, and campaigns, and I see some information over here. What this means is that AdWords and analytics are talking to each other, is the way I put it. A big reason for those of you already using it, you really want to make sure that this is enabled, because this will help you determine if your AdWords money is going down a black hole. People click on an AdWords campaign, but then they actually do something on your site, right? So these are people are coming in on the campaign, and then you're seeing their behavior, if they're completing goals, a number of different things. And again, this is a little sidetrack from analytics, but a problem I see with a lot of AdWords accounts is people will just look that there was a click. They'll say, oh, we have a 3% click through. That's really good. No, it really doesn't matter as much as what they do once they get here. And so I want to say this too, if you do have an agency managing that for you, you want to make sure these are connected so you're able to kind of monitor yourself too how your campaigns are going. So what you will do if you have AdWords and you come into analytics and they're not connected, you're going to see a screen like this one. So again, what you're doing is, making sure it's connected. And this I put in here, this I always throw out to people who come to a BB webinar, is that if you are interested in using AdWords and you've never used it, I will send a voucher. Again, this is only for people who attend this event. You don't have to work with me. You don't have to ever talk to me again. It's just as a Google partner, I'm able to get these pretty easily. So I'm happy to do that. I don't even put you on a mailing list. So I just wanted to make sure, again, you knew that that was available for people, who were just here today. Another thing is the Solutions Gallery. So has anyone heard of the Solutions Gallery? If I can just get a yes or no real quick. Okay. Oh, this is good. I'm telling you, and I'm saying this is good because no one's used it, and whoever you work for is going to absolutely love you for knowing how to do this. So the Solutions Gallery, I've just got a screenshot for you here, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come on over and show you how it works. This is just another free Google thing, and if you just look up, if you just do a search, you say Analytics Solutions Gallery, you'll find it no problem. So the way I always describe it is it's somebody doing the work for you, right? I'm sure we all wouldn't mind to have an assistant who helps us do a little bit more of our work. So let me walk you through this. So I'm going to go to, and I don't always remember the URL either, so I'll say Analytics Solution Gallery. I'll go ahead and click in there. What this is, these are dashboards and custom reports and widgets that other people have already created. So you're not having, if you're using any of those features, you don't have to start from scratch. So let me see if I can find one here real quick. I'll go ahead and I'll pull this social media dashboard. When you click on this, it just shows you a little bit about, other users rating it, and, you can just kind of look at this here, and I'm going to just go ahead and do import. The reason I'm not giving this a whole lot of thought pulling this over is because this doesn't break my account. So if this turns out to be a lousy view, then I can just go ahead and delete it. So I'll just do this so I remember for later that I'm testing it. So somebody created a dashboard to get at social media channels for the account. So what I'm doing, I'm just bringing in a framework. I'm not bringing in anyone else's data. This is just a framework for looking at social media channels. So I'll go ahead and I'll say create. Now what I'm doing is this account I've been showing you, I'm pulling over this dashboard, and we'll give this a minute. And this is what came over. Okay, so it's showing me how many people on the site. This is ridiculously high. New visitors from social, that's a pretty big deal. So I'll show this to you very quickly, and just dashboards alone, could be a topic for another time. I just want to make sure you're aware of this because this can be extremely helpful. Is as you go through, you might see some data that's valuable. So here, we had a lot of people, not a lot of people from social, so that'll kind of give you an overall number. These are the people who came from these networks and read an article on the site. But then you're also going to see some that really aren't at all useful. So you can just kind of X that out, X that out. So you're bringing in, again, the framework from the Analytics Solutions Gallery, and then from here you're deciding what's helpful and what's not. So let's say I go through all of this, and this isn't ideal, but we'll just say, okay, this really gives me exactly what I want in terms of social networks. I pull over the data from the Solutions Gallery. I have that in my account, and I say this is good. This is going to give us the information that we need. What I can then do is I can share it. So there's three options here for sharing. The first one is share object. So let me show you what share object means. Over here on the left with my dashboards, private means that these are my dashboards that I'm looking at for this specific account. A shared dashboard would be when I create a dashboard, if I think it's a good one, I will share it with other people who have access to this account. So that's why I would see it here. So if I liked this dashboard and I wanted to share it with other people using this account, I would say share and share object. And then what would happen is over here in that shared area, we would see the new dashboard that I just created. Okay, the other option is share template link. So if I have a good dashboards for social media in my account, and you say, well, we needed to figure out how we're monitoring social media too, and we want to have just a quick glance so we're not always drilling into the account. What I can do is I can take this link, I can email that to you, and then what'll happen is now you'll be able to bring that over into your account. So again, I'm not sharing any data, I'm just sharing that skeleton with you. The third option, which I won't do since I pulled the dashboard from somebody already, had already created, but if I was here starting from scratch and I had all of these different features in here, and this is something that's not in the solutions gallery already, I can come here and I say share in solutions gallery, and I'm doing what these other people had done, right? So I have a dashboard framework that I like, and I'm sharing that out with people, in the solutions gallery. So that's what that is. Solutions gallery is really going to be a big time saver. So kind of what I say your homework for here, it is a bottomless pit, so if you really get into data, you might find yourself spending an extraordinary amount of time in there. And then just start with a few that answer the questions that matter to you. Okay, so that's where we are with the solutions gallery. The next one is the emailing reports. I want to show that to you quickly. If you are somebody who's reporting on data and you're constantly asked for the same view of your data, or somebody asks you to pull the same numbers on Monday, what you can do is in all areas of your account, towards the top, you'll see this option where you can email a report. And then what you do is wherever you are in your account, you go up top, you choose the option to email, and then you can say perhaps maybe every Monday. So that way you're not having to remember which report and who wants what if you're reporting to a number of people. So just a very simple homework there is if you, again, if you are the person responsible for reporting out data, you may want to just take a skim of what you've been asked for the last couple weeks, so just see what people are asking you for. If there's a lot of requests, and then try to figure out what exactly they want, and then just set it up as an automated report in analytics so you're not constantly having to pull information. Okay, so the location reports. Let me show you where those are in analytics a minute. The location reports matter if you are not, depending on the geography of your business. So here I am in audience and geography location. So couple reasons to look at this is if you are like a brick and mortar store, you're really going to want to just look at people who are in your regional area. So what I did here is I clicked, when you see blue, that's a hyperlink. So I clicked on United States, and then I got all these different states. And then I can come in here, I click South Carolina. Now I drill in again to all of the different cities. So this can be helpful to make sure, because if you're brick and mortar, you may only care about the traffic that is local, so you'll look at that. If you are a nationwide business, you might want to look at this to get some new ideas for markets to target. Like, do we need to open another branch there? Should we do an advertising campaign in an area? So this just tells you a little more information about your audience. So again, those new markets. Also, maybe if you already have a budget, you may want to adjust that based on what you're seeing in there. So this is just, again, kind of those takeaways I mentioned. If you're brick and mortar, it's obvious. Also, if you have a CRM or an internal customer database, that's something else that you may want to look at, and think about ways to do a geographic campaign. And like I said, even in old school direct mail, where are the people that are interested in what you have to offer? Next thing I want to show you is with mobile traffic. With mobile traffic, the first question to answer there is really yes or no. So when I'm here in my analytics, my audience, mobile, I always say start with yes and no. So are people coming to your site from a mobile device? Now we know mobile's being used more and more. I can see with this group it's not as much, and I'm not surprised. This is just a different donor, visitor, or audience base. More people are inclined to use their desktop. They're not like if this was a site that attracted people in their teens and 20s, I would expect to see mobile a lot higher. But what you're looking at here, and again, you're going to see this in audience mobile overview, is this going to help you figure out when it might be time for a site redesign. So if you have a lot of mobile visitors and they're all bouncing, so they come to the site and they leave right away, or they never complete a goal or a conversion, it could indicate that your site is just not very mobile friendly. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. And again, if I come back over here to analytics, what I'm looking at, I'm not too concerned because mobile is not quite 14%. When I look over here, okay, so this is interesting. I look at the goal of pages per session, and it's about the same percentage are willing to spend that much time on the site. So that's with mobile, is what do you have to think about when it comes to mobile, if your site is not friendly. Now, if I saw a very high number of mobile users and I saw a bounce rate of like 90%, that would indicate to me that we have a problem we need to fix pretty quickly. If a lot of people come on mobile and they're not happy with the site, then that's something in terms of marketing we need to take care of very quickly. Okay. So that's just kind of your homework there. Just take a quick look, and again, that's under that overview. And let me get there. Just take a quick look, and again, that's under that overview. And let me get another quick question here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Curious where people are with social media, and then I'll go in and talk about what you might look at here. So if you want to just punch in 1 through 5, I'll give that a second to come in. Okay, we're pretty much across the board. Seems like mostly 3s. Yeah. Between 1 and 2. Give it just another second here. Okay, well, let me show you how to look at it. I can tell you honestly, right now I'm at around number 5. I'm on a Facebook hiatus, like I just can't handle it. So I still use my other channels, but sometimes I hate social media, so it's a tough one. So here's what you can look at if you are doing social media. And as I see a couple people here saying number 4, we're just talking to ourselves. So I'll show you how you can look at your social media traffic and what one thing I think is very helpful with it. So again, acquisition, it's how we acquire people to our site. So come down here to social, and I'm going to just do network referrals. So this is how I can start, and actually I'm going to go back further since this is a pretty low volume site. I want to get a little more data for you. Oh, is it not going to let me go back that far now? There we go. Gives us a little bit more. Okay, so while that's loading, what I'm looking at the bottom is our social media channels, and then how many people are coming in from each channel. So I can see most of them are from Facebook, spending a fair amount of time. One thing that I really like when it comes to social media, if you are a business where you're doing a ton of work on social media, and it's just kind of wearing you out because every day you're like, oh, we got to put new content up there and I really don't know what to say. So just again, imagine these are really big numbers because this is when it would be more meaningful. What I like to look at is to look at a secondary dimension and choose day of the week name. So if you're looking at your account and you're saying, you've got this huge social media activity going on, you're just kind of throwing stuff out there and you're doing it, or at least scheduling it 7 days a week, you come here and you look at day of week name. What this will then do is break down your channel by the day of the week. So again, we'll just pretend that these are enormous numbers and they're, very meaningful. So if I were to come in here and I look at Facebook and I'm going to pretend that on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, Thursday, there's 100 people, and on the other days there's maybe 1 or 2. What I may decide to do is instead of putting content out there all the time, I might look at the days where I'm bringing in the most traffic and then target my content on those days. So I'm really, so I'm just putting it to people who are really bringing to the site. So that's going to help you, determine if you're talking to yourself or not. So again, this is under acquisition. This is then social, network referrals, and then I choose the secondary dimension of day or of week name. So that's just a good one. It's very helpful for people who are doing an enormous amount of social media and just are not even sure if it's bringing people to the site. So kind of that homework there, just look back, go back for a while and see how you're doing and seeing which channels are doing well. And then if it comes to the bottom one that says small paid ads, I haven't done a lot of paid social media campaigns. They haven't really worked great for the accounts that I've been on, so we often turn them off after a while. But if you see one that you think is doing pretty well, then maybe you would do want to try a paid campaign. Okay, so the landing page, we've got a couple more things I want to show you before we do some of our Q&A, is the landing page is the page that people land on, right? I know it sounds very obvious, but you're going to hear this term in a couple different ways, where you have a landing page, meaning a special page that people use in a paid campaign. In this context in analytics, the landing page is the page that that people are landing on, meaning it's the first introduction to your site. So let's see, that one doesn't have anything that stands out. Let me just try another one of my accounts I've got open for you. Let's see. So this is for a local conference here. Let's see what they have for their landing page. Okay, so it's a little bit low. So not a surprise. You'll probably see this for most. When you see the slash, that indicates it's the home page. So this one, people are mostly on the home page. This number is still pretty low, but maybe could be interesting at some point if people are coming to the about page. They want to know more about this organizer. So that could be, that you'd want to watch. The reason that I point out that I say take a minute to look at your behavior, site content, and landing page is, again, remember, people are introduced to you not just on your home page. They may get to you another way. So you want to see what other ways they're being introduced to your site. If you find that the page they come in is also the same page that they leave, it could be that you have a problem. So if you have a top landing page is also your exit page, and let me come back over here. Yeah, so you can also look at landing pages and exit pages. But if a lot of people are leaving from your site or they bounce immediately, you might want to look at what's on that site. Do we need a clear call to action so people know what they're going to need to do next? Is the messaging unclear? Is it not appealing? So that's where you might want to kind of be your homework for there. I think what I'm going to do, the behavior flow, I'm going to keep moving through this because I want to make sure I talk to you about the segments and filters and still give you enough time. So let me go ahead and come back to this one. I will just say behavior flow is really complicated. So I often show people how it works, but it's not the most user-friendly report. So that's why I want to spend more time on this stuff that I think is a little bit more helpful. Okay, now this is where I get into where I say things that you can break on analytics. Okay, so an advanced segment, just to kind of give you an introduction to these terms, an advanced segment is something that you apply to your account and you're looking at it's only for as good as while you're looking at your data, right? So if I say I want to look at a segment for new visitors only and I get out of my analytics account and then I come back in the next day, I'm looking at all of my data again. I'm not just stuck on that new visitor only. Now, the filter is where you can get yourself in trouble. So you want to be careful who has administrative rights when it comes to filters. Because when you have a filter and you apply it, you're permanently removing your data. So that's the key thing to remember there. And I'll just show you one real quick. So in this account, let's see if he's got some filters on here. There we go. So we've got some spam filters. So in this filter, a common one too is for Office IP. So I'm going to just kind of make this up. So I'll say Office IP. So what a lot of people will do is they'll come in and they'll say exclude traffic from the IP, blah, 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 and you enter your IP address. What happens with this filter is you have now permanently removed data from this IP address. So that's obviously a good thing if you don't want to count that traffic. But if you made a mistake and let's say you said include instead of exclude, and I have seen that happen before on an account, then what you've done is you're only including your Office traffic and you're excluding everyone else. So this is why I say with a filter, you have to be very, very careful because it's removing your data. So that's just something you want to kind of double check. And I always put this when I'm talking about just marketing strategies because you want to save your data. So if you are the owner of your analytics account, what I would recommend that you do is if you come back into analytics, I would say create a new view of your data. So you're just saying create a new view and that's all you're doing. You're not doing anything with it. But what that means is it will include all data. So your spam, your staff traffic, your internal traffic, so it's going to include more than what you necessarily want. But as you can see here, this one is all data, do not add filters. So in case a mistake is ever made when somebody adds a filter, there's always going to be this one clean view of all the data. Event tracking, this is a topic for another time. Again, this is something I want you to be aware of because for your marketing strategy, this might be very important, is that an event would be something that's not automatically measured in analytics. So if somebody buys, we can track that. If somebody completes a form, we can track that information. This is something that when somebody does, so I come to your website and I play a video on your homepage. The URL has not changed, so there's not a new page view. But for me as a user, my experience is different. I'm clicking on this video and I'm seeing, a promotion or something. That would have to be tracked as an event. Now, what this means, again, as a marketer, I don't want to confuse you too much. This is just so you know a conversation you would have to have with your web developer. what can happen is if it's important to you to track that people clicked play, your web developer can put a piece of code, with the YouTube video that will track when people click play. So again, think about that if you have clips or things that you want to track, that that's not built in. It could be a video, it could be a white paper download. Here's a couple other examples of what this might look like. We want to know if somebody clicked on download, for whatever they're downloading, or a link, or so again, all of these things. If you are tracking events now in your analytics account and you didn't know you were doing that, you'll be able to see that in your account in the behavior. So here again, I'm in analytics, I'm in behavior, and then I just do overview, and they haven't tracked any lately. This is a site that's more regional, but for your account, go to behavior, events, and then you can see if you are tracking some of these other things. But again, just to get you thinking, if there are some things that you want to know about a download or a video play, that you'll have to get with your web developer to talk about implementing this into your account. And then this is kind of the how-to for doing it. I will just, the other brief thing I'm going to just kind of introduce you to, I'm going to talk about Tag Manager for a minute. And again, I know I'm always doing a fire hose of information because I like people to have as much information as they can about analytics so they're able to, just use whatever works best for them. Google Tag Manager is another free product from Google. And what it is it's a way for you to track your tags. And a tag, a little piece of Google Analytics code, would be an example of a tag. So this is just a screenshot from an account, but so let me tell you why you would even care about what I'm talking about, or if you need to just tune me out. If you have a site that you've got Google Analytics, and then you've got AdWords, and then you've got DoubleClick, and you've got AdRoll, and you've got all of these different things that are being put on your site, code being manually added to your site, then you might want to do this in Tag Manager, because Tag Manager it's a container. So you stick all of your codes in this container, and once it's set up, it's not easy to set up, but once it's set up, it's going to be a little bit easier for you to manage, and you'll be able to add and remove tags a little bit more easily. So if you have a lot of tags, like the ones I said, that beyond analytics and AdWords, you might want to consider it. If constantly asking your IT people to add some new code on the site is a problem because you don't have a huge team, that would be another case. So like I said, it's another class, but if you just want to search, if you're thinking, we do have too many tags and we're constantly bothering IT and it does slow down our site, then in that case, it's something that you may want to consider. And again, you can just look up Google Tag Manager to read about it and know that it is something, a free tool that you can use. Okay, so now it looks like I am right on time to leave those last 15 minutes for questions. So Jim, I'm going to go ahead and turn that back over to you. And then as those of you who have put in questions, Jim is going to share those with us.
Okay, thank you, Tina. I now can take your questions. If you have a question, please type it in the chat box in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Okay, our first question came in via email. Is the only thing we have on our site, if the only thing we have on our site is for Google Analytics, should we still consider using Google Tag Manager?
Okay, if the only thing you have on your site is Google Analytics and you're just getting started, you're kind of a new site, or you're tracking your marketing efforts a little bit better, I would do that. I would put Google Analytics into the Tag Manager container, because then it's going to make it easy for you to add tags and to do some more tracking later on. So yes, I would still do it.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Can you show me the custom intelligence alert again?
Yeah, let me come over to the intelligence events because we didn't show you that in the screen, and I want to make sure I have an account that's got something happening in it. May not have any for these accounts. I'm showing you accounts where I have permission to show you data, so that's why I'm a little bit limited here. Okay, so here we go. So what this Google's looking at the site for January, February, March, and what they're expecting that they said for this time period, there's only just over 400 sessions, and they would expect it to be more. So it's saying that number is down. In this case, I'm not going to do anything about it, again, since this is a real seasonal event. But if this was something, again, this is really just a way to call your attention to it, and then you decide if it's something that needs further explanation or not. And you'll see this again on your left column is where you'll access these different things we talked about today.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Do you have any suggestions for pulling reports in Google Analytics?
Let's see, for pulling reports, it would really depends on what you need to know. I'll just show you one that I look at all the time is in my acquisition. I like to look at source medium. So I want to know how people are getting to the site. And then I will usually come in here and I'll do a landing page report. So I can say that I want to know how people are getting here. And then I want to know what page they're going to. Then what you can do, so again, we're in my source and medium. We have a secondary dimension of landing page. And then you can add it as a shortcut. So I'll go ahead and I'll click shortcut. And I'm going to name it, exactly what it's doing, source medium by landing, right? So I have just kind of quick, easy report, and I say, okay. And then now, so let's say I come into my account next week, I want to see what's been going on. Then under my shortcuts, then I can do source medium rather than having to drill in like I just showed you a minute ago. So I think that's going to be a very helpful report.
Okay, thanks, Tina. The Solutions Gallery. Not sure why I should use it. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So the Solutions Gallery can help you when you're getting started. So let me come back I'll come back to this account. Now I can come in here and I can say that I want to create a new dashboard. So I'll just come in here and I'll say test dashboard. I'm doing this just so I know I can delete it later. And I have this blank canvas. So what I would do is I would add all of these new widgets. So I can say I want to add, you know, can I have just regular sessions? Yeah. So I want to add my sessions and I go ahead and I say save. And so now I have my first widget. I can keep adding these widgets, so I can keep saying add widget and manually build these out. Or if I come over here to the solutions gallery, I can say, well, did somebody already do a traffic? I'll just search for a traffic dashboard. Give that a minute to load. So then what I'm doing here is I'm looking for somebody who's already built one. So, so let's say I look at this one. Okay, a referral traffic dashboard. It's got some good feedback, and I go ahead and import it. Then what I'm doing, well, I may as well just go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and import it. So let that think a minute. Test just so I remember it. So now I'm bringing somebody else's dashboard over, and I'm going to take a look at it, and I can see it's giving me visits and bounce rate and mobile and all that other stuff. Over here, what was happening is I was saying, oops, what did I just do? No. I was saying I want to add a widget, and then I want to add another widget, and then I want to add another one. Whereas here, it's the framework is kind of built for me, and I can say this is helpful, this is not helpful. So that's why you use the solutions gallery, is that if you do want to build out a dashboard of data, it will definitely be a time saver.
Okay, thanks, Tina. If multiple competitors are using the same keywords, for example, cribs, how do they affect the results in Google search pages?
So if they're, okay, so, I'm assuming you mean maybe competitors using cribs maybe in their AdWord campaign. So I'm going to go ahead and make an assumption here that we're talking about baby cribs. So when I search cribs, there's two different types of results that are going to come up. The one, you'll see these first four here, and I'm not going to click on them. Even when I see a competitor ad, I don't like to click on them, I think just because I know how expensive it can be. But so these are the people who are bidding on the word crib, and Google is giving them a top ranking, either because they're paying quite a bit, they have a quality page, there seems to be a user experience. So that's one way how that word, cribs would come up for competitors. But then what you have down here, so from here down, this is another way that stuff's coming up. And this would be your search engine optimization. So this is based on the content of your site, the backlinks that are going to your site. So if hopefully I'm answering your question. If not, please clarify so I do answer it for you. So you said the competitor using the word cribs. So you have cribs could be paid if they're paying for it, who they're competing for that's paying for it, and who they're competing for that just has good websites that Google think is relevant to the search. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tina. We want to make sure we see traffic from our email newsletter tool in analytics. Is one tool better than others?
No, what I recommend, I personally am familiar with um, MailChimp and Constant Contact. And let's see if this group, I just want to see if they've got some, let's look at their just traffic here a minute. Yeah, okay, so here we go. So you can see line 7, that's from an email. So whether you use Constant Contact, MailChimp, I don't know, there's Icon, there's a number of different solutions there. So whichever one you're using, go into the help for that email newsletter and just look up Google Analytics, and it will instruct you how to connect Google Analytics to your email marketing. And that's important to make that step because this is the kind of traffic you want to see. If you look at lines 7 and 10, they have their email marketing newsletter, which is great that it's named by month, because maybe you send out a newsletter in March and somebody doesn't even open it until April. You can see when people are viewing your traffic. And again, and it will vary by vendor, but definitely make sure that you look at your help guide and get those two things connected.
Okay, thanks, Tina. We have a content site. Does it make sense for us to set goals since there's no purchasing or lead generations happening on it?
I think so. If you are on a content site, what I would recommend is back here when we were looking at the admin and we were looking at goals, I think the ones that probably would be, or like these first two would be ones that you might want to set up. So again, you might have pages per session more than 2, more than 6, more than 8, because what I didn't say earlier is you can have up to 20 goals. So I would definitely do that for the pages and the time on site. Are they on there for 5 seconds, 5 minutes? And then that way that can help you see which referral sources are more likely to bring traffic to you that's engaged traffic.
Okay, thanks, Tina. What's a good resource for some self-study on Google Analytics?
Okay, so for self-study, I would go, let me think if analytics, should just be Analytics Academy. Yep, there we go. So if you do search like I just did, you said Analytics Academy. So you got analyticsacademy.withgoogle.com. This, of course, is free. These are just some of the core courses that Google offers users for free. And for those of you who are new to analytics, I would suggest starting with this one. It's free. It's self-paced. Sometimes they're open for certificates, sometimes they're not. But I think it's pretty quality training as far as giving you a few snippets and some videos so you learn how to use the product. So that's definitely where I would direct you for first. Again, those of you on e-commerce, you might want to spend a little time on this one. So again, this is just Analytics Academy, and it's a free service from Google.
Okay, thank you, Tina. How does Google Analytics know demographic, for example, age of users?
Okay, so the demographics, that comes through what's called the DoubleClick Ad Exchange, and let me just see if I can find a link for it real quick. So so what this does, the DoubleClick Ad Exchange, it's a marketplace, and it basically works with Google Ads for buying and selling advertising. So what this is doing is it's tracking, I guess basically tracking your preferences, and it's making some assumptions. So for example, if let's say I was an avid video game player, right, and I just played video games 6 hours a day, the assumption might be made that I'm a 12-year-old boy, right? So that's why I say we use kind of a grain of salt, because we don't always know for sure that the number is completely accurate. You also have your Google profile. So when I set up my Google account, I've got my age, my gender, um, and so my opinion personally, and maybe you can see if you do a little search online, see if others agree. I think the data is a little bit fuzzy to know the exact demographics, but it still can be interesting to poke around in there.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Any more suggestions for setting up dashboards and analytics?
The dashboards, I would think back to what do you want to know the most? Are there certain numbers that maybe you monitor in your AdWords? Is it mostly important for you to look at geographic data? Once you decide some of that information, then I would come to that analytics solution and just do a search like I just did. So we're saying, let's say geography matters. We see a few things here. And so think about what matters. Pull some of these over by choosing import. And if they're not any good, then you can just go ahead and delete them. So, but that's where this gallery can be helpful too, is it can kind of help you think through what even might be important
Okay, thanks,
information
Tina.
for you to know.
How often does Google Analytics make updates?
My default response is too often. They have, if you look up like analytics blogspot, it'll tell you some new features. But I've also had stuff, like you saw today, I had something I was showing you that wasn't in analytics the way I thought it was anymore. So again, and I just don't have a good answer for that. You can look at like Google Analytics official blog, and it'll tell you. And sometimes there are changes that I don't really understand the purpose of. Like they might say it's a user versus a visitor. So don't be surprised if you're in here more that you come in one day and there's something that you've never seen before. But if you look for their official blog or support site, you'll see some releases there. I mean, maybe every
Okay,
2
thanks,
weeks or
Tina.
so.
That was our last question. If you didn't have an opportunity to ask your question, please email it to bnovick, that's bnovick @pdp.com, and your customer relations specialist will be glad to respond. Tina, I now can turn it back to you for some closing remarks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim. Just the final thing that I'm going to say to all of you is make goals your priority. I've given you a number of things today and a lot of things for you to experiment with. But I would say if you're overwhelmed, start here. Just make sure that you have goals set up. And if you don't, spend a little time getting those started. So good luck with everything.
Thank you, Tina. Progressive Business Executive Education would like to thank you for attending today's webinar. If you would like to purchase a recording of this event, you may do so by calling 800-964-6033 or by using the enclosed order form. We would also encourage you to complete and return the evaluation form to us. On behalf of Progressive Business Executive Education, I would like to thank you for attending the program.